Johannes is advisor for data science and machine learning as part of the group Sustainable Digitalization and Artificial Intelligence at the AI Commons Lab at ZOG. He's also an associated member of the Institute for International Political Economy and an associate member of the research group on mathematics of machine learning at Freie University Berlin. Johannes has a PhD in mathematics, but also a postdoc that he did in Canada on the project Mathematics for New Economic Thinking. So he's worked at the intersection of mathematics and heterodox economics for a while. And yeah, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Christoph, for the introduction. And also thank you, Max, for sorting out all these technical things. As we said, with the wireless LAN here at the HTW, we're not fully happy, but we hope that now you can hear us and we can have this hybrid session in a reasonable form. And also thank you, Elena, for jumping in before. Actually, so I thought I would speak directly after Spiros. So my first chapter will be a little bit connected to the question of post-capitalism and data also that Spiros mentioned. Then I will talk about planetary boundaries and nonlinear dynamics. And then I'll come to the progressive computer science and conclude. But let me start. I'm sorry to do that again. I promise the final anecdote from the time when I worked with Gregor Gysi, because that illustrated or still is stuck in my mind that actually in his biography he describes one situation where he was supposed to become the next chairperson of the Communist Party in the East, and he was invited to the room where the chairperson of the Communist Party of the East was sitting, and he was waiting there for an hour or something, and he observed that the very top person of the Communist Party in the East was always by phone answering queries for material in factories. He would actually say, oh, there is material missing here in this factory. Oh, we have to send it there. And this was the way, done by this person, personally with phone calls to try to overcome the inefficiencies of allocation, one could say so. Without saying that this is the most important or the only thing we should discuss, but when historical experience shows that very right, then obviously this can't work like this, that you do phone coordination of materials. But okay, let me start briefly, and that's why I was always interested in this question: how can we maybe then make it happen if it's not an abstract concept of democratic socialism? And so my take on this recently is actually I'm working in this AI Commons Lab where people deal with environmental data and mostly circular economy. And I have two examples that can maybe get us a little bit optimistic that in some parts of these communities there is relevant data available also in a quite granular form on products and what are the inputs for the products and what are maybe the environmental damages from the products. So I want to mention two projects here. One is called Recirc, a combination of recycling and circular economy. And the second one is actually a database for life cycle sustainability assessments. There's an open source software that I'll briefly speak about, but let me start with this project Recirci about circular economy and digital life cycle passports. So as you can see in this picture, it's probably a bit small font, but you can see the cloud in the middle. So the idea is there that over the whole life cycle of a product, so from even planning to produce it, then the reproduction, then the usage, and then the recycling, there should be all data available in this kind of what they call digital life cycle passport. And this was supported also by the German environmental ministry, and they set up an infrastructure for that, and even in the end used AI methods to sort electronic waste and combine those data from the sorting process with those data stored in this digital life cycle passport to get better recycling decisions in the end. So that shows maybe that the data question is important for planned economies, but also nowadays this is a big discussion. And my suggestion is that we use these discussions about what also the European Union is planning now on digital product passes. In a way, one could say a bit optimistically that they are creating the infrastructure that in a few years or decades we can run a democratically planned economy on that. And there's a few papers that are now written on requirements for digital product passes for the circular economy, mostly, of course, not post-capitalistic, but like having some technical maybe requirements. But my suggestion is that we research on the question, how should a digital product passport look like to enable ecological economic planning? So that when now these infrastructures is built up, I think it's sector-wise, it starts with batteries, where it's already in place a little bit. And so I think there's a lot of data will be available in the next years on products. And also recently I learned that in life cycle assessment, which is a very growing sector also, there is also a lot of data available, and a colleague who can't be here today, but his name is Walter Zolk, and he's also involved in some of the planning debates. He has recently published a paper where also, I would say it's worth trying to, if we can use this data that is maybe collected for a different purpose to assess the life cycle of existing products here in capitalism. But I once looked at how this works. How if you have a laptop, for example, it's disassembled into different components, and you can really track how many grams of which raw material is part of that laptop, for example, and where does it come from, what's the cost, and so on. So I would say in certain sectors there is a lot of data available, and we need to make use of this to advance the planning debate. And also there is free databases to maybe not so big data quality. It's even possible to try this out. It's called OpenLCA and OpenNexus, open source software, free. And I recommend that we use this community of environmental data for the planning debate, as I have the feeling this has not been the case. But let me come to the second part of my talk, where I reproduce a figure that was also part of Elena's talk on the planetary boundaries, that really in a lot of these factors we are really doing bad as humanity, and also they have a self-amplification mechanism. So we have to be very attentive that, for example, this ocean acidification, at the moment the oceans, they store a lot of carbon dioxide, but once it's they are saturated, it will be even worse for the greenhouse gases. So these feedback mechanisms play a huge role, and that's why I shortly want to speak about planetary boundaries and nonlinear dynamics, because when I did my postdoc in Canada with a mathematician called Matteo Grasselli, he has analyzed a lot and criticized economics a lot, also after the financial crisis, that there was a breakdown, and then there was an analysis that these models had many problems. But also now for climate change, it's maybe even a bit more severe, right? Because if you have a financial crisis, you can say, okay, we close the banks and it's very bad and so on. But you can do something about it if the financial system breaks down. But if the planet breaks down and you're beyond a tipping point and there's nonlinear dynamics that will kick you on an unstable manifold, we could say, or an unstable trajectory, then you can't just shut down anything, and you will be in a very bad situation. And that's why it's, I think, important that we come to solutions for that, but I would recommend to check out these non-linear dynamics references also, because so my first, you could say, academic project was actually critical mathematical economics, where you use methods from mathematics to criticize the mainstream in economics. And that's certainly important, but now as we are on this computer science conference, I'm putting the focus on what you could call progressive computer science. So I think we need a lot of people with technical skills to join us in this endeavor to create a post-capitalistic economy. And I want to give you an example of models that can be used, also a bit related to my past research, because many years ago, I dealt with computer chess programming, as it was also there was some neural network involved, but it was also to learn about some coefficients as part of a search in computer chess. And with these breakthroughs in AI research nowadays, I mean, the computer can just by self-play and by learning master games like chess or like Go, even more complex game. Yeah, without any human knowledge that is put inside. And maybe for the time, I skip a little bit of this technical explanation, but I wanted to mention that so these techniques that were successful in solving the game of chess can also be used in a project called Alpha Tensor for mathematical problems, but also by Spiros, who just talked earlier today. He has a paper, Artificial Intelligence Inspired Methods for the Allocation of Common Goods and Services. And I think we need to really work on using these methods. And my research questions I put here is, yeah, the question, where in the different models of economic planning can these AI models play a positive role? So I think that's in a way the main point. It's maybe not planning everything in a centralized way, but what is the potential and the limits, especially for decentralized planning, and can we link them to the data maybe coming from this environmental community? So that would be, I think, a way forward as a research plan for progressive computer science. And yeah, let me maybe end my talk with like a link to what I did when I worked at Die Linke, and for like strategic options, how to yeah, come forward fighting climate change and achieving a post-capitalist society. Because I think if we do work on these post-capitalist economies, it's not only like because we want to implement that tomorrow or because we find it interesting, but I think it can have an important role in what Antonio Gramsci, a political theorist, called the fights for hegemony in the society at the moment. Capitalism is unrivaled, unchallenged, and this has very bad consequences also for reform policies or for the day-to-day political struggle. And there's another theorist called Nikos Poulantzas who thought about the role of the state in capitalism, and in German it's called Verdichtung von Kräfteverhältnissen. So it's an area of fights, and so the overall state of the fight for hegemony has influence also on the possibilities for reform politics. And so I feel, you know, when the GDR existed with all the bad elements and the, of course, very unfree society they had, it was still a correcting factor for capitalist societies in the West, because somehow the feeling was, okay, we can't exaggerate the treating the workers too bad, because there's always this other model where like they do things differently. And I think that if we manage to convince ourselves and then also the broader public that there is, in principle, a different way to organize things, I think this can also widen the possibilities for reform policies and be very important from a strategic point of view. And I wanted to present something I called adapted strategic triangle. And it was originally 20 years ago by the left party or the PDS at that time, that how to achieve social progress. There's always a triangle of things you can do. You can protest, and you have to also radically protest against the system. You can say Fridays for Future has the slogan "System change, not climate change." There's a lot of protest. You should probably also do small steps and improve the living conditions of people and fight for the health of the planets in political system, in the government, but like as part of the system. But I think what I want to emphasize in this talk is that the third part of this triangle is the developing fundamental alternatives to capitalism in order to transcend the dominance of private profit is also essential in this balance. And I would say in there's a tension, of course, between these three edges of the triangle, but together, if you can make this tension productive, somehow I think that's the way forward to fight climate change and to come closer to post-capitalist society. Yeah, and just because we have tensor in the title of the session, so I think I will be even a bit quicker because I'm nearly done now. Just for fun, I wanted to present that my dissertation was about the Einstein equations of space and time, and that's really a tensor equation where you can do a lot of mathematics with it. And as we know, maybe the economy is even more complex and cannot fit in a tensor equation, of course, because we have a lot of social relations coming with that. Yeah, so I'm basically at the end of what I wanted to present. Feel free to contact me in case of any research ideas. I'm working at this AI Commons Lab where we also did a few talks on the circular economy, and so I put the webpage for reference. And also we had the idea of maybe founding a network if this kind of discussion sounded interesting, and maybe I have the feeling that bringing together these communities is an important endeavor we should work on, and maybe it's realistically speaking in early next year we will maybe contact you again and maybe try to compile some kind of network and organize maybe next seminar, next event to discuss these questions further. I'm happy for questions, and thank you for your attention.